you guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you're here. Today I want to talk about some of the financial regrets that I've made over the course of my 20s and into my 30s. I made a few financial mistakes that I, regret doing, but I also wish I would have learned from them sooner. So I hope this video helps you maybe avoid these financial mistakes that I feel like I made. So number one was not taking full advantage of my employer match when I was working. I did not go to college straight out of high school, as most of you know, because I'm currently in college now, going for my bachelor's. I went straight into the work field, and I was actually working for a mortgage company while I was a senior in high school, and I just continued on from there, and I just worked my way up. So I ended up working for 3 different companies. First 2 companies offered a great employee incentive to contribute to your 401k, and it was dollar for dollar up to 6% match. And I can tell you that I did not put 6% of my salary in to get that match, and I regret it so much, because thinking about the time value of money and how that money would have grown, it boggles my mind. And I just can't believe that, I didn't put that money in to have a better outcome in the future. I'm so glad that I did contribute to my 401k, but there were times when I lowered it to like 1% of my salary. I just wasn't really thinking about retirement that much. Sorry, the lighting just changed. I really wasn't thinking about retirement. I knew I should put money into a 401k. I just didn't know how much. Whenever I had a struggle or financial hiccup, I would just lower my contribution limit to my 401k. That was just what I would do when I was struggling with money. I would just lower my contribution limit. So that is a regret, and I just wish that I would have just toughed it out, or learned to manage my money better. Which brings me to number 2, is not doing a zero-based budget. Now, in my defense, I did not know what a zero-based budget was. I was budgeting money, but by paycheck to paycheck, like living paycheck to paycheck and just budgeting that way. Like, these are the bills I'm gonna pay here with this check. These are the bills I'm gonna pay with this check. That's how I did my budgeting. And I never, accounted for every single dollar, which is the budgeting method I use currently. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I just wish I did a zero-based budget. And if you don't know what a zero-based budget is, it's just that you account for dollar all your income and all your expenses, and you give every single dollar a place to go. So even if you're putting money to savings, you just want to put that in there, that you have $100 left to budget, where you're going to put that $100, and you want the incoming and outgoing to be zero. So that's something that I didn't do. I always saw like extra money as free money to spend, for all my hard work. And that's what I always did. And because of that, I never really had a plan for my money. And, I never really saved money. I didn't have a savings account. Well, actually, I did have a savings account, but I would just dip into it a lot. And it wasn't for emergencies. It wasn't for anything like that. So that brings me to number 3, which was not having an emergency fund. I always thought that my credit cards were used for emergency expenses, and anytime I had an emergency, I would just use my credit card, and that was not a good plan. That just did not work out well, because you never know how many emergencies you're gonna have in a certain period of time. And not that your savings will fully cover it, but it could, depending on how much you save. But, not having an emergency fund, I recall having a leaky roof, or needing, my car fixed, or things like that. And it just was always a struggle financially, because I didn't have an emergency fund in case any emergencies came up. So I'm going to trickle that into the 4th one, which was carrying a balance on my credit cards. Yes, I carried a balance on my credit cards from month to month, and if I had anything else that would come up, I would use my credit card and just add to the balance. And I really wasn't, trying to pay it off, every month or anything like that. I did end up, paying off my cards eventually, but I would always rack up more debt and then carry it from month to month. So it was just a cycle that never ended, because I would always spend more than I actually had coming in on credit cards. And it wasn't, I wasn't going out just splurging, things like that, but because I didn't have an emergency fund, I was just digging into my credit card. So I was spending money that I didn't have, and that just caused me to rack up so much debt in credit cards over the years, because if I don't have a plan for getting out of it, and then I have an emergency, but I don't have an emergency fund, I'm just gonna find myself back to using my credit card for emergencies instead of my savings. So that brings me to number 5, which was, and I'm so embarrassed to say, but I took out a 401k loan. Yes, it was so bad. And I took out more than one, sadly to say. But yes, I regret taking out a 401k loan, because you're pulling that money out, and with the time value of money, there's so much that it can do for you, that you don't even realize. You think you're pulling out like $3,000, but in the long run, that $3,000 can make you so much money with compound interest and just the time value of money itself. And I was so young, and I did that, and it's a regret. So yes, taking out a 401k loan, I do not recommend doing that. It was one of my, sadly to say, a regret that I have. And the first 401k loan I took out, it was to consolidate credit card debt. And that's probably the worst reason you want to take out a 401k loan. It wasn't a good idea, and it was just something I did at the time, and I regret it, but I had no idea what I was doing with my money. Which brings me to number 6, which is not learning about personal finance sooner. I wish I would have learned what I know now back in my 20s. Not to say that I know it all, because I don't. I'm always learning. I'm a never-ending learner, lifelong learner here. And I'm always going to be learning about personal finance. And as I learn things, I just hope to share them with you so you can avoid some of these mistakes that I made in my 20s and 30s. So yeah, I wish I would have picked up a personal finance book or something to learn about personal finance, because, of course, as you know, they don't teach this stuff in school, or if you do learn about it in school, it's very, very minimal. It's like, maybe if you're lucky, they'll teach you how to balance a checkbook. There's barely any financial education in our education system, and that's really sad, and I hope that that's going to change in the future for future generations. But you don't learn this stuff in school, so I wish I would have read books. The first financial book I read was Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, and that really just opened my eyes to the things that I do not know about money. And from there, I took his course, Financial Peace University. I took that course, and then I, didn't stop my journey there. I started reading other books, or I should say listening to books, because I normally just listen to the audiobooks. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, a lot of Robert Kiyosaki's books. I really enjoy reading his. I read The Richest Man in Babylon. That was great. A lot of financial books that I'm still learning. I'm still, listening to them, and I really enjoy them, and I feel like I can, pull from different people and just make up my own opinion based off of things. For instance, Dave Ramsey, he is completely against debt, but I'm not completely against debt. I just feel like you should use debt responsibly, and you should never carry a credit card balance like I did in the past. That's something I was just never taught, to pay off your credit card every month, So I do realize there's certain benefits to using a credit card as long as it's used the right way. If it's used the right way, you're not paying interest. You're using it because you have the money to pay it off right away, or like in a week, or before it accumulates any interest. Most credit cards have like a grace period where you can pay it back without owing any interest. And they also have points that you can accumulate, and you can use that to purchase trips, or anything that they let you purchase, or you can even get cash back rewards too. So there's so many benefits to using a credit card. It's also safer, to use a credit card, because when you use a credit card, you're using the bank's money. When you use a debit card, you're using your own money. So if you use your credit card online and the information gets stolen, there's so many breaches out there that happen. And if the information gets stolen, it's fraudulent. So the credit card company, they won't charge you for the charges that are fraudulent. For a debit card, that's your own money. So you could be out this money for as long as it takes for the banks to research it. it, you know, and then sometimes they have to put a freeze on your card so you don't have your debit card for a few days, you know, so you're out of your money for a few days. And I just feel like having a credit card for things like that is, you know, beneficial. And this one is, you have to be careful who you get your advice from. I would get my advice from people who were living paycheck to paycheck, and you know, they weren't doing everything so well in personal finance, but I would listen to those people. And you know, this could happen anywhere, even with YouTube, you know, even with people like me who are talking about personal finance. You know, you should be careful who you're getting your advice from. And that's why it can be important to do your own research and don't do anything that you don't feel comfortable with, anything that you don't understand. You know, take your time with trying to understand that and do your own research. There's so many opinions out there. You never know what's good advice or not, you know, especially if you're just learning. So I suggest learning from different people, but also learning from people that you've seen are doing well, that you know are doing well, and you want to mimic that or follow that behavior. So taking advice from people who, you know, that you've seen live paycheck to paycheck and then trying to follow their advice, sometimes it's not the best advice. So, you know, do your own research, see what works best for you, and just don't follow advice from just one person. Sometimes you need multiple opinions to make your decision and to make your mind up. When I first started, you know, paying attention to my finances, and, you know, I took Dave Ramsey's course, there were some things that I didn't agree with. And, you know, it wasn't until I ventured off from Dave Ramsey, started looking at other financial gurus, that I found, oh, what I feel is more in line with what they're saying as opposed to what Dave Ramsey was saying. So nothing against Dave Ramsey, like, he's great, you know, he got me into this financial journey in the first place, and I don't feel like anyone motivates as well as he does to get out of debt and do anything like that, or to pay attention to your finances. He really gets you motivated and, you know, gets you excited to start. So nothing against him, but there were just some things that I just didn't really agree with. And, you know, you should always just figure it out for yourself and see what works best for you. And yeah, just don't follow one person's advice, you know, go out there, do your own research, and just see what works best for you. Okay, so number 8 is not investing in a Roth IRA. Now, to my defense again, I did not know what a Roth IRA was, but now I know that I really missed out on this opportunity. And if you are in your 20s and you're just hearing about a Roth IRA, then yes, please contribute to it. I regret that I never took advantage of a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is a retirement account where the money you put in is money that you've already paid taxes on. So when you pull it out in retirement, you don't have to pay taxes on that money. So that money can grow over time, and then during retirement years, you can pull that money out and you don't have to pay taxes on it. Also, whatever you contribute to a Roth IRA, you can pull out as long as you're not dipping into the growth of it. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. You know, I would recommend just holding on to it and letting, you know, the time value of money work for you, and just letting that sucker grow. You know, don't touch it, just leave it alone, let it grow. I mean, I can't change it, but I did not know what it was, and I wish I would have, because that's such a valuable opportunity. You know, so if you have the money to do that, max it out every year, and that's just an amazing opportunity. So number 9 is, so this mistake I didn't make until I was in my 30s, but it was leasing a car. I leased a car, and it's one of the most expensive ways to own a vehicle. My husband works at a dealership, and he got a really good deal to lease the car, so we ended up leasing a car for me. Prior to that, never owned a new car, brand new car in my life. I always purchased used vehicles. And this was the first time that we leased, and it was brand new. Well, I guess you can only lease brand new cars, but my husband got a really good deal on it, so we ended up leasing it. I personally don't think leasing is bad for everyone. For me, it didn't make sense to lease because I'm perfectly fine driving an older vehicle. I do not need a brand new car, you know, to get me from point A to point B. However, some people do enjoy that luxury experience, you know, and they enjoy getting new cars. If you're the type of person that is always getting a brand new car every 3 years, then it might make sense for you to lease. If you're always planning on having a car payment forever, then leasing might be a good option for you. But I personally did not benefit from having a lease, and I feel like I would have been happy going and spending $5,000 and just paying it out front and just driving that vehicle. The vehicle I have now is an older vehicle. It's, you know, it's paid off in full. I don't have a car payment on it, and I actually enjoy that. That was a regret that I had, but like I said, it's not a regret for everyone. If you're always gonna have a new car because that's just the type of person you are, then it might make sense for you to lease. And here is number 10. Okay, so number 10 is buying a house before I was ready. So I purchased a house when I was really young. I believe I was about maybe 19 or 20, or yeah, I was very young. And I just purchased it because, you know, everyone was telling me that, you know, it's not good to rent, and, you know, I believed everyone, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be a homeowner. I was so young and I did not know what I was doing. I remember the roof just leaking, and I would call people out to come fix it, and they would never fix it. You know, it was just like headache after headache. It was a money pit, and it was just so much money sucked out from me that I wasn't prepared for. I wasn't set up with an emergency fund. I wasn't, you know, prepared to take on the extra expenses that come along with home ownership. And I had no idea what I was doing. There's way more, you know, other issues that happen with that house. But yeah, buying a house before you're ready. Don't listen to everyone else, you know, take your time with that. Have your emergency fund in place, and just realize that there's more to home ownership than just, you know, paying a mortgage. There's so many other things that you have to do, and sometimes renting until you figure out where you want to live is beneficial. So that's something that I do regret, was buying a house before I was ready. So number 11 is keeping a closed mind to finances. I thought I knew everything there was to know about finances. I thought because I was doing well with my money, well, subjective, because I thought that since I was able to pay my bills paycheck to paycheck, that I was doing good with money. That's sad. Like, that's really sad. And because I thought I had it all together, I wasn't open to learning about finances. I was so closed-minded about it that I just didn't think I needed help in that area. I thought it was good, and that's something that I regret. I just wish I would have been more open-minded about it, and just, you know, not think that I knew it all, because I did not. I did not know it all. I just wish I would have humbled myself in that area and realized that there's so much more that I can learn. So that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.